Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the episode of the Daily Friend Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Lorimer, today joined by Hermann Pretorius. All right, well, we're going to get into our second batch of polling results that Hermann has been in charge of collecting. And Hermann, we made a lot of news when we spoke relatively recently about how, for the first time in the country's history, one of our polls showed that the DA was ahead of the ANC in terms of who people said they would vote for. This was right in the middle of the VAT debate. And there was more questions of South Africans, and these were, what do people actually care about? What are the issues that people care about? Where do the different political party supporters lie when it comes to how they feel about various issues? And some pretty interesting results came out of that. So, excuse me there. I think the bottom line, if I may summarize it as thus, is that there's an awful lot of nonsense talked in our politics about issues that people don't really care that much about. At the end of the day, South Africans really just want the economy to grow and jobs to be the focus of any administration. Why don't you tell us about what the surveys found?
Well, I wish I had spoken to you earlier, because then that sentence could have been the entire report, and it would have saved me a few hours of analysis and writing. But as I have done that, let's jog through the findings. So we've got 7 key findings. Finding number 1 comes as no surprise. Job creation remains the top national priority, and this continues a multi-year trend. And if we look at sort of, was it a close call between various issues? No. What we do is we ask respondents to identify the top 2 issues, and then we collate those groups together to make sure that we don't sort of just filter out on one issue, but we actually get issues to compete a bit, because otherwise you end up in a situation where something that might be almost very important gets no attention and just the top line figure, and then you don't really get a representative idea. So methodologically, we ask people to list 2 issues from a randomized list of issues. And unemployment, job creation, far ahead of the rest, with just under 30% of support for the top national priority. Second place, illegal immigration. Third place, crime, safety and security. Then corruption. Then the abuse of women and children. Then water and sanitation, the next 5 issues, all of them between 5 and 10%. So we've got job creation on 30%, and the closest thing we get to then is illegal immigration, which is 9%-ish in that area. So it's not even a close race. Finding number 1, people want jobs. It's not even a contest. It's just a simple priority of national importance. Second finding, merit trumps race. We asked South Africans who should be appointed to jobs, and we give them 4 options. Option number 1, only Black people for the foreseeable future. Option number 2, only Black people until demographically representative of the national population. Option number 3, merit-based appointments with special training for people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Option number 4, merit-based appointments without any special training. And the merit side of the argument, with 2 options counting together, give us a majority of 84% of South Africans saying we should be merit first. And that is a majority that is, it's the stuff North Koreans can only dream of in terms of national consensus. And that breaks down to 30.5% of South Africans saying merit alone, and 53.5% of South Africans saying merit with special training. And what's very incredible about this finding is, whether you look at it by a racial category, whether you look at it by income group, whether you look at it by political party, it's always merit that wins out. So Minister Meth, with the employment equity race-based targets, barking up very much the wrong tree. Moving on to the next finding, value for money trumps race targets in terms of public procurement. Now, very shortly, public procurement is the government buying stuff to do its job. Uniforms, stationery, toilet paper, cleaning materials, vehicles, procurement stuff. Currently, those things are bought not on a value for money basis, but on BEE points, that if you're a supplier and you're given giving the best value for money, but you don't have a high BEE score, you won't get the deal. So, as our colleague Gabriel Krauser found in his research published earlier this year, we lose about 150 billion rand a year. The taxpayer loses that due to BEE premiums in public procurement. That's surprisingly not popular. Surprisingly, out of the blue, who could have thought it? By 81.7% majority, South Africans want value for money procurement, not race-based procurement. And that combines our finding of 54.1% saying value for money only and 27.6% saying value for money, but if there's a tie in the value for money competition, the race could be considered as a tie-breaking factor. Then we polled, for the first time I think anyone's ever polled this, we polled the popularity or not of the Expropriation Act that was signed into law earlier this year. Who could have thought that in a moderate country that desperately wants jobs, that wants value for money spending, that this Expropriation Act, this attack on property rights could be unpopular? Well, it is. 68.1% of South Africans say it is a bad law. They oppose it. And what's more is a vast majority of ANC supporters. In fact, higher than the national average. 79%, almost 80% of ANC voters oppose the Expropriation Act their own party passed and their own president signed into law. Then moving on to the question of, do we want a government focused on job creation or welfare expansion? Comfortable majority in favor of job creation. Choice-based empowerment programs like voucher schemes versus current employment equity and BEE schemes that focus on tenders and contracts and managerial level posts. Again, it's not even close. 76.3% in favor of the choice-based system. And our last takeaway, our seventh key takeaway, is that on every single policy measured in this report, from merit-based appointments to public procurement, to the Expropriation Act, to a government focus on jobs, to tax-funded voucher-based systems, the ANC supporters, the ANC's own remaining supporters, that 29.7% of people who still say they'll vote ANC, by comfortable majorities of more than 2-1, they oppose the party's position on policies. And that is a massive threat to the political parties who are, like the ANC, who invest heavily in terms of political capital on issues that are either unimportant, according to the prioritization of these issues, or important, but they're on the wrong side of. This should be a wake-up call for the ANC, perhaps more than anyone else.
Very interesting. And I think what's most interesting is that, quite often there are policies in politics that are a very good idea, but are not particularly popular. In South Africa, we have this incredible circumstance right now where a lot of policies that would make life better for almost all South Africans are very popular. As you say, things like merit, things like value for money from government, those kind of things. Most people, it seems, are eminently sensible and have a pretty good grounding of the way things should work in order for the country to thrive. And yet, our political class, particularly in, as you say, in the ANC, are missing out on the fact that the opportunity for them to reform themselves and the country is right before them. There is a public mandate to do the stuff that we've been suggesting needs to be done to fix the economy. And yet they're sort of continuing to pay off entrenched interests of various kinds, the tenderpreneurs, the public civil servants, unions, the South African Communist Party, groups which actually are not representative of the mass of South Africans.
Absolutely. And if we look historically, the ANC does best when the South African economy does well. If we compare two election outcomes, 2004 and 2024, 20 years apart, the highest point of the ANC and the weakest. In 2004, they get 70% of the vote. Growing economy, unemployment inching down, fiscal discipline, making it possible for the welfare support system to be created, service delivery in a positive trajectory. South Africans feel a sense of optimism. They reward the ANC. Then we look 20 years later, stagnating economy, a skyrocketing unemployment, stagnation in service delivery, all the socioeconomic metrics that could be solved or worsened by the policies discussed in this document. And we see the ANC getting it wrong on every single point, leading them to surprise their worst electoral outcome ever. So it is a painful reality that it seems the ANC has lost the ability to respond to democratic pressure. They've lost touch with ordinary people. And I've said this before. Margaret Thatcher was considered to have a superpower of understanding public opinion, having her finger on the pulse of what the public wanted. When she lost that, she was out. All iron ladies start to rust at a certain point. And I think the ANC has lost that power to listen to the voters, and it's an iron lady starting to rust.
Indeed. But now it's not just up to the ANC to seize the opportunity to reform, because evidence so far suggests that they are reluctant to do such a thing. It's also on the various opposition parties to prove that they are the parties that can be trusted to implement these changes that would make the country better. And I think the DA still has a ways to go in convincing most South Africans that indeed this is what they would, these are the things that they would be able to implement in the country. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. The DA and MK are interesting cases because MK has powerful messaging, but out of step with what South Africans want in terms of policy. The DA, where South Africans want to be in terms of policy, not a strong message breaking through. So it really is up to these parties for MK to take its radical insurgent messaging, its populist tone, and back that up with some substance. And there's policy here that could support that. You know, you don't have to be an elitist to be pro-property rights. You can say, we in the MK don't want you to be tenants of the state, tenants of those people in the union buildings in Pretoria who think they are better than you. And at the same time, the DA must make sure that their popular policies are actually transformed into a message that carries, a message that works, and a message that doesn't feel defensive of economic privilege, but expansive of economic freedom.
Fascinating stuff. All right. Thank you very much, Hermann, for your time today. And we hope that you enjoyed the show. We will see you all tomorrow on the Daily Friend Show, where we're going to be talking about budgets and all the other crazy things that have happened in South Africa. The meeting with Donald Trump, which I know many commentators are watching eagerly. We'll see you tomorrow on the Daily Friend Show. Cheers, everyone. The Daily Friend Show and the Daily Friend are a project of the Institute of Race Relations, the IRR. The IRR is a think tank which was founded in 1929 to study race relations in South Africa and works to change government policy to improve race relations through non-racialism and to ensure the prosperity of all South Africans. If you like our work and would like to support us, please go to irr.org.za and click Support the IRR. Or you can go to thedailyfriend.co.za and click the Fund Us